Today's topic: how do I choose the right therapist? Where do I start? I'm talking with Dr. David Day, a licensed clinical psychologist who has conducted and enjoyed a successful practice in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 40 years. So, Dr. Day, I am struggling with some difficulties and I'd like to talk with a therapist or counselor. How do I find a good therapist and where do I start?
The first thing to think about is what kind of therapist should I see? I happen to be a psychologist. I'm kind of at the top of the pyramid when it comes to psychology. Good news, bad news. I have the most training you can get, but then what goes with that is that I'm the most expensive. So a question to ask yourself if you're looking for therapy is, are there competent master's level therapists that I can see who can handle the problem that I'm dealing with? So, for example, most master's level therapists are trained to deal competently with relationships. Most psychologists are trained to deal with more complex psychological disorders and to be able to diagnose those. So, um, there's a good place to start. And I often will let people know when they contact me, if I determine in our initial interview that there's not a need to have a psychologist look at things, I'll just mention that. I'm overqualified. I'm happy to help you, but honestly, you could find some really good therapy. I can refer you to people who can help you out. So many times it is a better choice, especially when people are trying to do therapy on a budget.
So, where do I go to start? I mean, do I go online? Are there websites?
Well, it's interesting. In this day and age, most of us are finding therapists online. I don't know. I'm kind of old school on this kind of thing, and it sort of boggles my mind that people would be willing to open up their personal lives to someone that they just know online. But it's the reality of this day and age, and so most people find me either through my website or through Psychology Today, where I have a profile. There's several other platforms that people find online, LinkedIn and other services. So that's often where people start. What most people don't know is that you can ask a therapist for a free short interview to get to know them a little bit. And I recommend that to people. A short phone call, even a video conference. And you'll have a first impression when you talk to someone. So that intangible is a really important part of therapy. In fact, what people are looking at, understandably, when they look at someone's website or profile, is what are their credentials, and of course that's important. But it's really the relationship that heals. It's not so much the expertise. It's not the techniques. You can know a lot of good techniques and not help people get better.
So, how do you go about figuring out if the relationship is good for you? I mean, just in conversation, you get a feel for that? Or do you have any suggestions on that? Because that could be kind of complex, I would think.
It's an intangible thing, though. It's in some ways it'll just be there'll be a click if you're with the right person. Someone might look really good on paper, and yet you just don't relate to the person when you talk to them. And so I'll often give people a heads up that as we're having our first interview or the first session, if it just doesn't feel right for whatever reason, I'll say to them, I won't get my feelings hurt if it doesn't click with me.
Now, do most therapists act that way, or are you unusual, do you think?
I think that's probably unusual. I mean, of course, every therapist wants the new business that comes in, and I don't recall having heard other therapists talk about that.
If I live in a small community, how do I find out where to find the best therapist? That sounds very puzzling.
It's pretty daunting, and depending on the size of your community, there's, in larger cities, of course, there's an abundance of choices, and in the internet era, you can often see people from far reaches of your state. It's not the norm yet that you can see someone anywhere in the world. It's we're working that direction, but one of the best ways to find a therapist turns out to be, again, an old tried and true. Ask someone, ask for a recommendation from your pastor, from your doctor, from a friend that you trust, and that recommendation says a lot, because whoever is answering that question has some knowledge of the therapist that they recommend. So that's a great place to start.
So, what do you say? I mean, when I'm talking to a therapist that is a professional, do I say, look, I'm just kind of auditioning you to see if this is a good fit? Do you have a program where I can talk to you for a few minutes so we can determine that? Or give me a set of words, because I'd find that awkward talking to a professional and saying, I'm not sure whether I want to work with you or not.
Well, I often will be the one who says that in a conversation, so even though I have it posted on all my profiles that I can do a 15-minute get acquainted interview, very few people do that. So that surprises me. If it goes to the first session, which it often does, then in the first session I will start introducing how things work in the therapy process. And one of the things I say to people is, you're inevitably, after you've looked at my credentials and you've checked me out online, you're sizing me up now as we're talking. There will be this. In fact, you probably already have a sense about whether you're comfortable with me or not. So pay attention to that, and you'll know if you're with the right therapist, because they'll be sort of easy to relate to. You'll feel comfortable, and I'll often say to people, therapy is difficult enough, because it often involves facing hard things to face and learning things about yourself, or just learning, which is uncomfortable for most of us. But it shouldn't involve the difficulty of just being out of sync with whoever you're talking to. It's rare that someone will even be aware that intangible process is going on. It's such an important part of things, though. So I am often the one bringing that up.
Thank you, Dr. Day. That's very informative. It's kind of scary for most of us to consider contacting a therapist. You've taken some of the fear out of it. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It was great to talk with you, Stan.